My next guest is Richard Fitzpatrick. Richard is a journalist and author from Clare, mainly focusing on soccer, amongst other things, whose work can be seen and heard through a number of media outlets, including the BBC, The Guardian, Irish Times, New York Times and El País. The Ennis native has just published his latest book. It's called HH, Helenio Herrera, Football's Original Master of the Dark Arts. Richard, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for being with us. So, you're based in Barcelona these days. How does a banner boy end up in Barcelona?
Yeah, love the usual story. I met a girl. She was going there to study. She's Venezuelan. She was going there to do a master's. So I had been living in Dublin at that time and ended up just moving out there. And we've 2 kids and a dog now. So there's no going back.
Yeah, you're in it for the long haul by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
But you are from Ennis, the Carcalla Road. To talk to us a bit about growing up here and how you ended up doing what you're doing, journalism and so on.
Yeah, I grew up in Carcalla Road, went to what it was at the time the Boys National on the Kilrush Road there, and then on to Flannan, and kind of left Clare or Ennis at 18 to go off to university, and had always come back, holidays and weekends and stuff, but ended up going out to San Francisco first, and that's how I got into journalism. I started working freelance for a newspaper there, and went on later to Toronto and worked for a couple of years in a newspaper there. So that's, how I got my start in journalism, and been doing it a long time now, 20 plus years. So it's worked out well. I've been in Spain for 16 years at this stage.
Yeah, it has worked out well. And when you're in Spain, I guess, I won't say inevitable, but it seems like a fairly prudent route to go down, Richard, is particularly with journalism, and you're someone who's into sports. Inevitably, soccer and particularly La Liga, and of course the 2 behemoths of not just Spanish football but European and world football, Barcelona and Real Madrid. It seemed, I guess, like a natural route to go down, reporting on them, but obviously your work these days and for many years has broadened out beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was to do with opportunity and demand. I hadn't done soccer reporting before I went to Spain, but when you're in Barcelona, it's an absolute religion there, the Barca soccer team, as you can imagine. And in Spain at large, the Barca-Real Madrid rivalry just eats all. So as it happened, I was only there about 6 months, and I launched into writing a book on the history of the Clásico rivalry, called El Clásico. So I spent 2 years doing that, and since then I've just done a lot of reporting. Half my work is on soccer. There's just huge demand for stories about Real Madrid or Barca or Atletico and La Liga. Barca are playing Atletico in the quarterfinal of the Champions League now in a couple of weeks' time. So there's just huge interest around it, and it's absolutely fascinating to see how important it is to the culture there, especially in a city like Barcelona, because people really identify with that team, Barca, their equivalent of the national team, and they don't really buy into the Spain national team.
Yeah, I guess the Barcelona is the team is the conduit through which, and perhaps one of the few, if only conduit, that they can express their how Catalan they are as opposed to being Spanish. Exactly,
you hit the nail on the head. It's their unarmed army, as they say. To paraphrase Bobby Robson, a former English manager of Barca in the 90s. It's their big cultural institution more than, in Madrid it's to do with their museums. That's what they revere. But in Barcelona it's to do with the football club. Like, if you go to games, all the announcements are in Catalan, and the Catalan language is closer to French than Spanish. The coaches, when they're Catalans, Xavi Hernandez or Pep Guardiola, will speak in Catalan. I remember interviewing Ider Gudjohnsen. You might remember he was a player with Chelsea and went on to Barca. He was telling me he when he signed his contract, he had to sign a clause saying that he would embrace the Catalan language and culture. And he said no other football club in the world would have a clause like this. He was baffled. He was Icelandic, but it's a huge part of their identity.
And, covering soccer over there, as you said, Barcelona and Spain, they're mad for it. We might think in this part of Europe, particularly with the Premier League being the biggest league in the world, and if you look at the media and particularly, I guess, the tabloids, a lot of the back pages and even sometimes the front page dedicated to soccer. But even with that, and with the perception some people might have in this part of the world that there's a lot of coverage of soccer, it's nothing compared to Spain and to Barcelona, where there are specific newspapers dedicated to not just the game but the individual clubs themselves, Richard, and all the behind the scenes drama that goes on at both clubs.
Yeah, it just doesn't compare. Like the Premier League is an obvious comparison, but in the run up to Clásico for 2 weeks running up to, it's all you will hear about in the papers. As you mentioned, both Barcelona and Madrid have 2 dedicated sports newspapers, and on the TV stations it'll be just everybody will be talking about. People will be on edge. It even goes as far as voting patterns in the country. There's 2 big political parties in Spain, the Socialists on the left and Partido Popular on the right. And twice as many Barca fans will vote for the Socialists on the left as Real Madrid fans. And conversely, on the other side, twice as many Real Madrid fans will vote for the Conservative Party as Barca fans. So it goes down to voting patterns all around the country. People there will, in the villages around Spain and the other cities, they'll vote, they'll support their local team, but they'll all support either Barca or Real Madrid. So you could walk into a village in Badajoz down in the south and you'll know immediately whether it's a Barca or Real Madrid bar, because the walls will be festooned with scarves and posters of one of the 2 clubs. And it goes back to the Spanish Civil War, politics, the idea of a broken red Spain. So it's just fundamental for their for the way they see themselves, and people take sides. You're either one or the other.
Yeah, and they take sides for both clubs, even beyond the boundaries of Spain and Barcelona. I mentioned you've written a book on the rivalry between the 2 clubs. You also wrote your first book was Where Clare Leads, Ireland Follows, which highlights some of the really interesting, famous, notable people who've come out of this county. Your new book, Helenio Herrera, Football's Original Master of the Dark Arts. I mentioned this. Helenio Herrera is a legendary football manager, but not maybe in the way that, a Pep Guardiola, Johan Cruyff, Marinus Michels, or, back in the past, those managers, or Alex Ferguson might have been, despite the fact that he won back-to-back European Cups or pre-Champions Leagues at Inter Milan, was the manager of Inter when they were beaten by Celtic in the 67 final. Tell us a tiny bit about Helenio Herrera and, why you feel maybe he isn't remembered as well as some of those names. And was it maybe he didn't leave an imprint on football the way, a Johan Cruyff might have, in terms of style and the imprint he left on Barcelona as a club? Yeah,
it was that first book I did for Clare Leads, Ireland Follows. The first chapter was a profile of Ger Loughnane and did other characters then, but getting my head around Ger Loughnane and it was a really memorable day interviewing him. That was a good grounding for studying HH, another master of the dark arts. They shared a lot of similarities. It's HH for soccer fans. He's nailed on as one of the top 5 or top 10 managers. He's probably not as remembered as romantically as say Matt Busby or that, but he was a hate figure in the 60s because he was synonymous with Catenaccio and defensive football. But he was a titan. I guess the surprising aspect for me, and one of the motivations for doing the book, was because he's a huge figure in Spain, and even more so in Italy, where he was so successful with Inter in the 60s. He's the greatest manager. I interviewed Fabio Capello, who listeners would know, an ex-England manager, managed Milan and Juventus, and he was his mentor. He idolized HH. He said 70% of the things he did in coaching, he took from HH. He was a mentor to Jock Steen as well, although they fell out. And as you mentioned, HH met his Waterloo, losing the 67 European Cup final to Celtic, to the Lisbon Lions. But so I wanted to educate people in the English-speaking world about HH, about this huge figure in the sport. He's revered in Barcelona. He's one of the great managers in the history of the club, along with Cruyff and Pep Guardiola. And the other big motivation for doing the book was this guy HH ended up on trial for manslaughter. He was involved in the first white death in soccer, first death from alleged doping. So there was a great investigation there to do to unearth what really happened with that death and his manslaughter case. I was always interested in doping in sports, going back to the Lance Armstrong case. So it was a good way to analyse doping in soccer. And as I mentioned, half my work is in soccer, but it's very hard to. I've written on doping over the years, but it's very hard to address it properly because of libel reasons. So this guy's dead since '97, so it's a good way into that topic.
Yeah, well, for many reasons, that particular issue, the fact that despite his story, and certainly in the English language, nothing really written about him, so that's a good opportunity for you. But also just from a footballing soccer perspective, he was clearly a trailblazing manager. If the likes of Fabio Capello remember him fondly, he had to have been good. The book is called H.H. Helenio Herrera, Football's Original Master of the Dark Arts, written by Ennis's Richard Fitzpatrick. Richard, congratulations on the book. Really looking forward to getting stuck into it. You're going to be doing a book signing in Ennis this weekend?
Yeah, exactly. This Saturday, Easter Saturday, April the 4th at 3 p.m. In the Ennis Bookshop. So really looking forward to seeing some old friends in there. So if anybody listening is around the town, drop in and say hello and pick up a copy of the book if interested, or you can let the bookstore know and they'll hold on to a copy. But looking forward to that. Saturday 3 o'clock in the Ennis Bookshop.
Brilliant. I'm sure you'll get a great reception. Congratulations again on the book, Richard, and thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to chatting to you again.
Great. Thanks, Alan.
Take care. Richard Fitzpatrick there, the Barcelona-based Clare journalist, predominantly focusing on soccer, with us on Morning Focus.